Unlocking Your World of Creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson. Mark introduces you to some of the world's leading creative talent, from publishing, film, music, restaurants, medical research, and more. You'll discover how to tap into your most original thinking, how to organize your ideas, and most of all, how to make the connections and create the opportunities to launch your creative work. Unlocking Your World of Creativity.
Welcome back, friends. I'm Mark Stinson, and today I'm so pleased to have as my guest Christian Banach. And Christian is a consultant to advertising agencies and creative boutiques and companies and firms on how to have a predictable flow of new business and get new clients. And Christian, welcome to the program, first of all.
Hi, Mark. Thank you for having me. Excited to talk with you here today.
Yeah. And, having spent my entire career in the agency business, new business and client prospecting and that sort of thing, having a pipeline of prospects and leads was always top of our mind. But also, what did the clients want was always a point of discussion. And, everybody wanted to be the most creative agency. But was creativity always the only thing that clients are looking for in an agency?
No, I would argue that that's a byproduct of what they're looking for. But what they're really looking for is they have some sort of problem and they need an agency to solve it. And if creativity can be a vehicle to do that, great. But at the end of the day, they want business results.
Interesting. So, there was always so much focus on creative awards. We're the most creative and we had the best ad and we were, the best commercial or what have you. Well, how did clients look at awards in that context?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think in the agency space, that's certainly something that we put a lot of value in, and understandably. But when I'm seeing with talking to prospects is that that's not necessarily what they put a lot of value in, at least initially. They're first and foremost looking for those types of agencies that can solve a problem that they have. And, granted, then they're as a second or a third layer, they're going to start looking at things like awards to, start to understand which agencies may be able to separate themselves from each other. But, interestingly, they're not following the trades, and every award that happens to come through like, us in the agency space are. So, it's certainly a great PR opportunity, but it's not nearly the new business driver, I think, that most agencies think and feel that it is.
Mm-hmm. And so, Christian, you're consulting with clients that range from Reebok to TD Bank and others, really multinational level. And again, I guess, from a screening process, you say, well, if I'm going to work with these big clients, I must have to work for the big agencies. Has that always been the case?
No, that's not the case at all, to be honest with you. I work with, some of the biggest agencies in the world. I work with some, very smaller shops as well. And, the agencies that are smaller that are winning those types of accounts, as I mentioned earlier, they solve a very specific problem and they're very good at that one particular problem. And regardless of the size of the agency, if you can do something and uniquely do it differently than others that are out there, you can win business from even some of the biggest companies out there, even if you're small. So, I think it's very difficult, on the other hand, for a full service agency that, is 20, 30 people to, win those types of accounts, because it's very difficult to be good at everything. But if you specialize in a certain area and you're really good at that area, those big companies will seek you out.
Mm-hmm. And when you're working with some of these creative agencies, large or small, what is your approach to helping them figure out what is that one thing? It's easier said than done, I imagine.
Yeah, it is, because unfortunately, how a lot of agencies have grown is really through word of mouth and referrals. And that type of business then comes and you don't necessarily know the type of work you're going to get or the type of clients that you're going to get. So it sort of creates a situation where they've done a lot of different things. And then once they get their foot in the door with a client, the client might ask them to do something else. And, us in the creative space, we love coming up with creative solutions and we'll go forward and we'll do that. But we haven't really built a business around a certain capability. As I think about, your question here, I think, so the process then that we would go through is really first examining clients that you have worked with, and what are the problems that they came to you for, and how did you solve those problems for those particular clients. And we look for commonalities between them. At first glance, a lot of agencies don't realize that that there is certain buckets of work that they've done. Maybe it's certain types of consumers that these companies were targeting. Maybe it's certain channels that they were targeting, but there usually is some common theme. And then what we then do is we take those themes and then we will go and try to find, all right, so what are the companies that have that same type of theme, that same type of problem that you've solved? And then we go and find companies that are having similar problems to that.
Mm-hmm. And how receptive are the agencies? I mean, again, I think about a process that you see so many companies. It's like, well, when I lose an account, I better go get a new business strategy. It's very reactive.
Yeah, it's very reactive. Luckily, I'm in a position at least that when an agency chooses to engage in me, they've usually gotten to the point where they realize they have to do something different already. So I come to them at a point in their development stage where they're ready for some change, and they're open and receptive to that type of an approach. But I will say, it's rare, because a lot of the other agencies that are out there that haven't reached that point yet, they don't want to be put into a certain box. They want to work on a wide variety of clients for a wide variety of services, which I can understand and relate to. But from a pure business standpoint, that's not necessarily what the clients are looking for.
Mm-hmm. And I guess going back to, the client selection process, is there a scorecard? Is there a seismic graph that says here's where you need to make impact in order to get the client's buy-in?
Yeah, I think, if I understand the question, I think at the end of the day, it certainly helps if you have clients in their industry or that have targeted similar types of prospects. You have to have some proof, right? You can't just go to market and try to win new business if you haven't done it before. It's really challenging to go at it that way. And it also very much helps if you have some remarkable results in that category as well. And that's part of the selection process that we go to as well is, we look at not only, what are the problems you solved for clients, but, was your approach unique? Because if everyone else could have solved the same problem, then it's probably not going to cut through and make a new company, especially an enterprise company, stop and want to change agencies. But if you've done it uniquely and you've delivered some remarkable results for somebody in a similar industry or sort of similar target audience, that's definitely a great way to get their attention.
Mm-hmm. And Christian, you came to this consulting angle of the business based on your own agency experience and the roller coasters of trying to get new business and grow your own company. Maybe you could give us a little of that background.
Yeah, I came into the industry. I didn't try to come in. I just sort of ended up in the industry. I actually started a business in high school, which was more of a concert promotions business. And that's really what it was for the first, 4 or 5 years. It was a great way to pay my way through college. We did some really great things. We were working with Grammy award-winning artists like Lady Gaga and Pitbull and T-Pain. And through, the concerts that we done, we did a lot of work with sponsorships, and we started working with big brands through our sponsorships. And then along the way, we also got approached by an experiential marketing agency that was looking for some help with some more street type activations. And based on our concert promotion business, they wanted us to kind of come in and help them, and we did. And that really exposed me to more of the experiential and event marketing space. And it was a very natural transition from what we were doing in the concerts and with sponsors into experiential marketing. And then, this is probably about 5 or 6 years into the company, it ended up getting to the point where our experiential marketing, event marketing became half of the business, and the concert promotions became, the other half of the business. But like I said, it wasn't something that was planned, but I found myself like I think a lot of agency owners, we all take maybe different paths, but a lot of the smaller agencies, a lot of the founders have unique stories and how they ended up where they are. So it's not uncommon, and with that, comes a lot of pros and cons to that entryway into the agency space.
Well, I was going to say, I always think of them as mistakes or, but euphemistically, maybe lessons learned. Like here's what not to do. What were some of those for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, for keeping on the theme of new business, I, like a lot of agencies, I grew my business through, word of mouth and referrals as well. It was that agency that reached out to me initially that got me going into the whole space. And then it was other agencies finding out about our great work. And it was a lot of word of mouth, and that was good in the beginning. And then the 2008 recession happened, and business really, dried up like it did for most businesses that were out there. And those referrals and that word of mouth wasn't coming in. And here I was trying to figure out how to keep this business afloat. And I didn't have a proactive new business approach. I didn't really know where to begin. So I ended up hiring a consultant similar to kind of what I do here today. And they came in and they provided a tremendous amount of value, but it was a little bit too much too late, unfortunately. However, it was what I was learning through them and that process is what inspired me when I ended up deciding to close that agency down a couple of years later. But it's what inspired me to go into new business and business development, which is where I've been the last 10 years. So, the lesson that I really learned there is that, even when the times are good, you still need to have a focus on having a predictable pipeline, a sales process, and today I look at anything that I get through word of mouth referrals as a bonus, right? And most agencies don't. That's where they drive everything from. So, a large reason why I decided to go into the consulting space and I'm in here today is to help those agency owners that are in probably a similar position that I was in, but be it 10 years ago, so they don't make the same mistake that I make, and hopefully they can keep their agency going, unlike what I had to do.
Because it does seem like, and I remember a former boss telling me this many years ago too, that, if you say new business is the lifeblood of an agency and, that's the way to grow, and you've got to keep this pipeline of leads, but you take your eye off the ball of the current clients and keeping them happy, then you end up on this treadmill of clients are coming in and going all the time, this revolving door, and you don't want that either.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think there's ways around that. I think first off, there needs to be someone dedicated to new business that is not working with clients. I see a lot of agencies that will take an account director and give them half responsibilities for new business, and rarely do I see that really work out that well. It takes a very special individual and a special situation to pull that off, because at the end of the day, the client will always take precedent over anything new. And ultimately it becomes this kind of roller coaster, the start and stop of new business activities. And, really to be successful in new business, it takes, what we call professional persistence, and it's constantly getting out there, because if you don't, you're going to fall behind. And that's always then the first thing that goes. So I think that's a big thing, is having someone dedicated to new business is something that I would definitely recommend.
Mm-hmm. And Christian, the way I got to know you send out some updates on, the comings and goings of chief marketing officers. So maybe this is a chance for me now to look on the other side of the desk. We've been talking about the agencies and the new business pursuit, but now let's talk about the chief marketing officers and other heads of marketing on the client side. What's going through their minds lately? What are their priorities?
Yeah, this is interesting. And it's been a great topic, especially lately, because I think there's been a shift at the time we're recording this. It's, we're going into summer of 2021, and vaccines have been rolling out at a pretty good clip, and things are starting to open up here in the United States. And, for the longest time, for the last year, it's been all really about, managing through the pandemic, and for companies cutting back, and now we are moving into a new phase where, companies are thinking 6 months, a year down the road, and in the 6 months to a year down the road, it looks like, knock on wood here, we're going to be in a very different place where we're going to be much more, opened up. So, what we're advising a lot of our clients on even right now is that it's not, so much about, getting through the pandemic and recovery. It's really about what's next beyond that. How have consumers' behaviors changed, forever, because of what has happened. What does travel look like, in 2022? There's a lot of, different topics. Then, the return to live events is another topic. So, I think a lot of CMOs right now, from what we're hearing, have been more in a protective mode, and now they're starting to look at something more of a growth mode. So it does present, some new opportunities for agencies, some new different categories that maybe were, really closed for some time here.
And it's always been so interesting to me, the lifespan of a CMO. I mean, the job turnover, it's a tough position, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I think, the CMO, they're asking more and more of the CMO, these days, from everything from customer experience. I'm seeing CMOs even taking on, employee experiences now, and certainly digital has become a bigger and bigger part of their role, and with marketing technologies that are coming aboard. So it's really, it's really a position that, I don't have a whole lot of envy, for, because it's got to be, really, really challenging, and the pace of change that is happening in marketing as well is really remarkable. I can't think of off the top of my head here, at least, another C-suite position that sees that type of rapid change that the marketers are seeing. So I think, unfortunately, it puts the CMO in a really tough spot. And there's some really great ones out there, and there's others that maybe aren't succeeding. And quite frankly, sometimes I don't think it's the CMO themselves that is not succeeding. I think just the organization doesn't really know where it wants to go and how to support them the right way. And unfortunately, they just kind of get caught in the middle.
Yeah. And does that high pressure, high demand then trickle or translate to the agency relationship?
It certainly does. It puts every agency in a situation where they have to have concern that if that client's going to be around or not, because if that CMO leaves for whatever reason, that their account then therefore gets into a situation where it could be in trouble. They say that the first 90 days of a CMO coming aboard is the most active. So if somebody leaves, that means someone else new is coming aboard, and they may have existing relationships. They may have a different vision. So it's really important for agencies to build relationships, with the C-suite, but then also with others in the organization, to really try to, have a great relationship overall. So even if somebody new comes aboard, they have that buy-in and that belief from everybody within, which is not always easy.
So you're really describing this first few months of a CMO's tenure as both a window of opportunity for a new agency, but also a window of a demand and opportunity, both, I suppose, for the current agency.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned our newsletter. We put out every week that new CMOs that have taken the helm at various organizations, and we certainly have companies that subscribe to this newsletter because they're looking for new business opportunities. But we have others that just want to keep tabs on their own clients and make sure that they're not missing something if somebody new were to come aboard and they not know. So it certainly works both ways.
There you go. Well, as long as we're on this note then, Christian, how can we connect with you, learn more about your consulting, but also maybe get on your list for this weekly newsletter?
Yeah, so I'm on all the social channels, but I think the easiest place to go to start would be my website, which is christianbanach.com. And within the website, there's an area where you can register for the Monday Motivation newsletter, is what we call it. So you get a little bit of Monday motivation, as well as the top 5 new CMOs that have taken over enterprise organizations over the last week. And that's a great way to stay in touch. And from there, you can find links to all the social channels, and we have a free masterclass that's available on there, and various other free resources for agencies.
Fantastic. And I think about that document that does become the bridge between that CMO and the agency, and that's the also famous RFP. What are you seeing, or what are you sensing is in an RFP today? Because you were mentioning, hey, the world's changed. Coming back is not like going back. It's going to be different. What do you have a sense that tomorrow's RFP might look like in contrast to last year's RFP?
Yeah. I think it's going to vary a little bit based on the individual industry that company is in. However, as I mentioned earlier, I think there has definitely been more, across every industry, really more of a protection. They're focusing more on their current clients and how do we get more out of them. And I see now a shift starting to happen where it is more growth mode. How do we find new customers and new clients that are out there? So I think growth will become an increasingly bigger and bigger piece of the RFPs, moving forward in the latter half of this year and into 2020 or 2022, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Well, thinking about your own creative journey too, Christian, I love the story that, this starts back in high school with some concert promotions. But looking around the corner, looking over the horizon for you, where do you see things going in your own creativity?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think from a personal side, I really enjoy art. And I've found myself increasingly trying to explore other creative avenues for myself. And art could be writing, art could be painting. It can mean a lot of different things. So, I mentioned the Monday Motivation newsletter, which I've gotten really great response from. And I've been, thinking about trying to turn those into a book of some sort. I don't know, to be honest, if anybody would buy it, but I have a daughter, and if anything, I would like to just give it to her. And if that's the only one that sees it, that would be great in my book. And if others can get value from it as well. But I really get a thrill out of that creative writing process. And I think that there may be more there. I had always just thought about it being more from a business standpoint, but I'm now evolving that thought process into, maybe it doesn't have to just be, a how-to book anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even the newsletter, listen, I thought it was a listing of new CMOs, and you have reframed it, and I'm reminded that it's Monday Motivation, and you tell a little story there. And so we always talk about sharing a bit of ourselves in this authenticity and revealing more of our personality. And so I can imagine future issues would have some of your paintings, some of your stories. It'd be fantastic.
Yeah, it would. I have a few ideas that I would love to continue to explore and share and put it out there. And if it could help some others along the way, that's a bonus.
Well, Christian Banach has been our guest. Can't thank you enough for being on the program, Christian, and thanks for sharing your insights.
Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And listeners, I think you've heard from Christian this idea of expressing creativity as an agency, as a creative company and a firm looking to impress clients and build a pipeline of new business requires an ongoing effort, an ongoing focus. And certainly, just as in this podcast, we talk about the pure inspiration of creativity. The creative department and the creative work and the awards is one piece, but solving problems creatively, and in the market and for the client's business is probably the primary driver. And Christian really underlined that for us today and underscored that importance. So be sure to visit his website, christianbanach.com. And listeners, come back again for our next episode. We'll continue our around the world travels. It was great to stop off and stamp our creative passport at O'Hare in Chicago today, but we're going to continue this journey across Europe and Asia, South America, Africa, the Middle East. We'll continue to talk to creative individuals all over the world and find out what inspires them, how they organize their ideas, and finally, how they make the connections and gain the confidence to launch their own ideas out into the world. So until then, I'm Mark Stinson, and we're unlocking your world of creativity. We'll see you next time.
Unlocking Your World of Creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator Mark Stinson. This program was produced by BSB Media, creators of IntelliKey Leadership Stories, Unlocking Your World of Creativity, and thepeaceroom.love. We've created a special offer just for listeners of the podcast. You can get the book, A World of Creativity, for a special price of $5.98 for paperback, and the Kindle version is only 99 cents. Go to mark-stinson.com to take advantage of this special offer. Our podcast is supported by Adobe and the Adobe Creative Cloud, the world's best creative app and services, so you can make almost anything you can imagine wherever you're inspired. We use Adobe to help make this podcast, using Audition, Premiere Rush, InDesign, and more. So join the creative community with the Adobe Creative Cloud, and let's make something better, unlocking your world of creativity.